Hi, and welcome to Dockside with Deb. In this weekly show, we'll talk to people who are doing some pretty cool things in sailing and experts in their field. I'm Deborah Diel, sailor, founder of MySail, and your host for today. Dockside with Deb is recorded live, so you can join in and ask your own questions. To find out more, head to mysail.team/docksideWithDeb. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Dockside with Deb, and I'm very lucky to have with me Vanessa Dudley, who's an international laser champion and trailblazer in women's sailing. And we'll just start right into it. Vanessa, could you start by telling us a little bit about how you got started in sailing?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on, Deb. I think when I think back about my sailing, the main thing I think about is how lucky I've been, because I don't come from a sailing family. My parents grew up in Western Sydney, and they actually moved over to Northern Beaches because they could buy somewhere cheaply there. So we grew up near the beach and near the harbour, but sailing wasn't in our world at all. And I'm from an era where, ran around in the backyard with brothers and played cricket, played soccer. And then all of a sudden, when I got to 9, suddenly, girls don't play cricket, girls don't play soccer, girls don't. My parents looked for something for me to do, and had some friends at Manly Yacht Club and took me down there. And actually, the minute I saw the Manly Juniors, that was it. I just, where could I sign? I just had to get in one of those Manly Juniors. I don't know why, but the whole thing just captivated me, and I think I discovered my passion at the age of 9. I mean, how lucky is that, really?
Wow, yeah, really lucky. And it's interesting that you say, at the age where girls don't play cricket or soccer, and there's, a lot of that is around girls don't sail too, potentially. Did you kind of find that was a challenge for you when you were younger and starting out?
So the Manly Juniors, junior sailing, there were girls and boys, and I was used to playing with, I've got 3 brothers, so it's never been something it wasn't something I really thought about. All I wanted to do was go sailing, and I didn't care. Nothing else really mattered. I was just obsessed with it, and I was completely hopeless. I had no idea what I was doing. And I think the first time we went out, we used to have to cross the hydrofoil path and the ferry path to get out from Manly Cove into Manly Cove. And we got in all sorts of trouble and got washed up on the shore of Manly, the eastern shore of Manly Cove, and people had to come down and rescue us. And I think we got taken back to the club in a police car and all sorts of things. And I was just like, how can I get back out there next? When's my next sail? I just thought the whole thing was so fantastic. And the racing side of things, I didn't have any sort of thing to base it on apart from doing it. So I used to, in those days, if you hit a mark, you had to retire from a race, but I didn't think that actually hitting a mark mattered. So I used to go around behind, I used to trail the fleet. I was completely hopeless. I used to shout abuse at my little brother, Michael, who had to crew for me. And I think after a couple of years, they sort of took pity on me, and at the presentation they gave me I actually got a prize, and I got it out. Here it is.
Wow.
It's the Persistency Trophy. And
Your first
I didn't know what persistency was. I was probably 11 at that point. And my father told me it meant never giving up. And I just thought, why would you give up and come in? It's so fantastic. All I wanted to do was be in a boat, So, like I say, very lucky to find the thing that I loved at that age.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like you said, why would you give up? You know, I guess that's interesting with the persistency prizes, you know, just keep going until you kind of get there. So, and which you obviously did. And, you know, you spent, as you said, a lot of time in your early days sailing dinghies. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of your progression on from Manly Juniors and what else you did?
I was a big kid, so I was too big for the Manly Junior pretty quickly. And my unfortunately for my father, but probably in a way, fortunately for me, really, he had a heart attack at the age of 40 and couldn't play sport himself anymore. So really, that he was a very good all-round sportsman, but that meant that he got really quite involved in my sailing, and the moth class was really strong at that stage, and they were scow moths, home built in plywood. And my father got involved, although he wasn't a tradesman at all. He that became his hobby, building moths for me, and that's when I discovered single-handed sailing. And we went to Balmoral Sailing Club, and so I got to about age 15 or so, I suppose, and then I was starting to waver. It seemed a bit boring to be going, like, hanging with my father, and my girlfriends were all at Manly Beach. You know, I was really torn. And then we went to a regatta up at Lake Macquarie, a selection series for the Moth Nationals in Perth, and that was highly competitive. To try and get in your state team was a really big deal. And I had this beautiful boat that my father had built, and I got in the team unexpectedly. And I remember I was standing at the scoreboard looking at the points, and there was a man standing in front, and he said to the person next to him, "That can't be right. That's a girl's name." And I thought, well, like, it comes as a shock because I was just a sailor. Like, it didn't mean anything to me that that I was racing in open competition. And really, I mean, that's one of the great things about sailing. It doesn't matter. Like, we compete if you find the right class that suits your build, and you know, you can compete equally.
Yeah, no,
Anyway, yeah, so moths, I guess I went on from there to all sorts of dinghies, and 18-foot skiffs, lightweight sharpies, okay dinghies, and every class had people that just welcome you to come in and sail their boat. Yet, you know, you have people that are just passionate about that particular type of boat, and all these classes have got things that are really great about them. And yeah, that's what I think when I think back, just the friendliness and welcoming nature of all these classes.
yeah, wow. And you mentioned you did, you know, some quite a bit of stuff in the Moths. Were there any other dinghies or any other classes that you kind of were really drawn to?
So the Moths, we got in the swing of going to the Nationals each Christmas, and we went to Perth, and just got, the first thing I saw when we got to Perth was a moth cartwheeling down the river. Like, that was our introduction to the Fremantle Doctor, and that was really windy. And then the next year we went to Adelaide, and that was just having to get through huge waves to get off the beach there at Largs Bay. And that, at that regatta, I actually qualified for the World Championships. And so that then set me on a course that just was incredible good fortune, really, because my father and mother, I guess, sacrificed quite a bit, looking back, to put the money towards helping me to go to Japan for the World Championships. And
can I ask, how old were you when you qualified for the Worlds?
so that was, I was 16. Yeah. So I was one of the junior. I won the junior Moth Championships there, and then continued sailing moths. And my younger brother Michael came in, and he also ended up winning the Moth World Championship, that junior World Championship too, a few years later. So that it was a real family, in, you know, a lot of family involvement there. And then the lasers arrived, and that was this this new class, and Modern Boating Magazine decided they would have a women's Australian Championship to select some people to go to the women's, well, it was Women's European Championship. So women's sailing was starting to gather a bit of momentum. It wasn't in the Olympics at that point, but there was a bit of a push to get women's sailing going. And so I borrowed a laser. Again, you know, people were so welcoming. It was a pretty new class, and I'm just thinking, you know, there was a lot of people that helped me get in the laser, and I went and we did the regatta, and I sailed against people in that regatta that I still sail against. Lyndall Coxon then, Lyndall Coxon, now Lyndall Patterson. We're still racing each other, you know, 40 plus years later. But I actually won that regatta, and I won an air ticket to the Women's European Championships. And then, that started me on sort of international racing and sailing the laser, full rig laser. There wasn't a radial then. And that was an Olympic class. It became an Olympic class. I suppose I thought in that time, I really liked sailing in open competition, and we didn't need women's sailing. We could, you know, sail with just as an open. That's the great thing about sailing, it's open. But really, seeing what's happened since women's sailing has come into the Olympics, it's brought a lot of women, provided a pathway for women to go forward and really achieve so much. So I'm glad it has happened, actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. And as you mentioned that you were only sailing full lasers at the time, there was no radials, which would be a bit of a disadvantage, at least for a lot of women. And for our audience who don't know the difference, you can probably explain it better than me, but the radial is a smaller rig. So it's for lighter people.
Yeah, but I mean, I had the advantage, I'm tall, and I think a laser suits a particular, or like all boats, all dinghies, you know, they suit a particular size, and you need to be fully competitive. You need to get yourself in that range, yeah. But after, I guess we went to some great places. England was the first Women's Worlds in 1977, and then Holland, Sardinia, the States, year in, year out. And the funny thing was, really, we'd race here, and Lyndall and I would be hammer and tongs, and I'd often beat her here, but then we'd go overseas and she'd beat me. So Lyndall won the Worlds like several times, and I came second and third, and it was really great. You know, Australian women were right at the front, and it was lots of fun. And I think the great thing about going to overseas championships, you go there and you don't just sort of go through as a tourist. You actually find somewhere to stay. You're there for 10 days or 2 weeks, and you sort of live in the place and get a bit of a feel for the place, and you get to go sailing every day. So, yeah.
Yeah, nice. And I guess as well, you're kind of there with a group of like-minded people, so you probably really get to kind of meet more people and really get involved in kind of at least that part of the life, you know, better than you would if you were just a tourist as well, as you said.
Yeah, I guess times have changed, and there's a lot more coaching support and that sort of thing. I guess we had support from, it was the Australian Yachting Federation then, but not really coaching so much. That was still coming, and so in a way, I think we probably would have figured it out a lot quicker if we'd had coaching. It sort of make some dumb mistakes, but I think you learn a lot. I think the things that I've learnt with regatta sailing, the thing is you never nail it. You just go. you no matter how much you do, I think sailing is endlessly complex. You know, there's just so many different variables, the weather, the opposition, just very minor things make all the difference. So it never gets boring. I did have a conversation with my mother at one point where she says, oh, well, just you go round and round those buoys. How come you just can't do it perfectly by now? And you very rarely do. I mean, there's always something that you can improve. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess kind of perfect is a bit open for interpretation, you know, in sailing, because there's always so many different little variables that go into it. And kind of, you know, speaking about that, and also all of the different championships you've done around the world, I mean, going to all of these different locations and trying to be competitive must be very complicated and very hard, because, you know, when you're in Sydney where you normally sail, you know what the currents do and what the wind's likely to do and all that kind of local knowledge that you're not going to have when you sail other places. I mean, do you have any, you know, tips or thoughts around how you kind of overcome that so that you can be competitive?
Well, I suppose because I've come back into the lasers and am very keenly racing masters laser sailing, and going to world championships again, you know, year in, year out. I guess there's a lot of local knowledge you can get before you go. You have to do your homework, look, I sail at Middle Harbour Amateur Sailing Club, and it's a laser club, and there's a really keen bunch of people there that also go to the World Championships, and there's a great sort of camaraderie and sharing of information. So that's a really great starter for getting our info together before we go. And yeah, the really important things, I guess, I mean, I've got my list of the boat gear that I need to take, the things not to forget. It's really important to know what to take clothing-wise, because we're often on the water, really long days on the water. But then beyond that, I think there's the general things about regatta racing that you sort of learn over time and learn from other people, and try and trap that are really useful. I'm thinking of some of the main things that I find really helpful, that anywhere where you are, it's like trying to keep it simple. Well, this works for me anyway, because there's, like we were saying, there's so much complexity to sailing, but it's all about being focused on the thing that you need to be focused on at the start. You can't be thinking about, did I lock the keys in the car, or, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be completely focused on what you have to be focused on, especially in lasers where, you know, you might have 60 boats on the start line all taking off at once. If you're not right in the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you're really going to struggle to get back into the race. You just have to be able to hold your lane there. And if you can't hold your lane, you end up not being able to make your own decisions. You end up just sort of being like a shuttlecock, so being forced around by other boats. So I guess, yeah, no matter where you go, the same things apply. Keeping it simple, not getting worked up. I generally make a bit of a rule for myself at the start of each season. This season, I'm not going to swear at anybody, and I'm not going to swear at the race committee. I'm not going to swear at anybody. I'm going to be really, really, really calm. And the reason, I mean, I don't want to, I guess we're doing this for fun. It's recreation, you know, and it's really easy to forget that. And I mean, for people like me, that where it's easy to forget and just take it too seriously. Yeah. We invest a lot of money in going to these championships, but it is about fun. How lucky are we to be able to do this for fun? And so it's your own fun and not spoiling other people's day. But also, if I get really head up, like, oh, that idiot just tacked on top of me, or why did they do that? Or they just sail on, but I sort of shoot myself in the foot, you know. As soon as I'm getting like, I go backwards in the race. So yeah, my goal every regatta is to just stay really calm. It's easier said than done.
What's the success rate on that one?
it varies.
Yeah, no, it's easier said than done, like you said. Well, I normally race on the bow on a lot of boats, and typical bow people tend to get a bit worked up, so I understand what you mean, but good ongoing goal to have. And when you think about those starts, as you were mentioning, like, so important to kind of hold your lane and just be in there. Talk us through kind of what you'd be thinking those, say 10-15 minutes before a start, when you're getting prepared and you're in the zone and you just need to think about what's important. What is that important stuff that you're kind of planning out in those last kind of pre-start minutes?
So I guess you end up with your things that you know that you need to do before the start. Generally, you'd have someone that you line up with so that you know that your speed. I mean, if you had a coach there, you'd sail along with your coach, but generally you've got just a tuning partner that gives you a bit of confidence about that your speed is okay. You'll get your transits on the line. I don't actually sail with a compass, but some locations I probably should, but generally, like usually if you can get a transit on somewhere on the land both ways, get a feeling for which end is favoured, what does it look like, how's the fleet shaping up, are they looking like they're going to go one end or the other, what else? So is there any current? Go and sit next to a mark and see if there's any current running different to what you thought it was going to be. I usually get out an hour before the start so that I can sail the first beat and have it come back down, have a look, just trying to get as much information as possible, and then making a plan and sticking to it. I'm usually pretty conservative. It's pretty unusual that I would fight for the actual, pin or boat end. I'd usually, if I think that the pin end's favoured, I'd be wanting to be in that third of the line, I suppose. It's really about trying to jump out with clear air. But yeah, I guess the thing is with dinghy sailing, trying to do well, it's a lot about the preparation that you've done. There's no way of, there's sort of no easy way to, you have to spend the time on the water. There's people that can achieve great things without doing that. I'm thinking of Brett Bayer, who's a professional coach, but I mean, he doesn't really get to race a lot himself, but he's always right at the front of his fleet. But yeah, people like me, the more that you sail, the more comfortable you are in the boat, the less likely you are to do the more it enables you to look around and think about the big picture, and the other stuff's automatic. Yeah, but I think laser sailing, I really love laser sailing, and I think for people that I was lucky I started sailing as a kid, and I know it's harder to get into dinghy sailing, and dinghy sailing mightn't be what you want to do forever if you come into sailing later, but I think even just a couple of seasons in dinghy sailing just gives you that feel for the boat and allows you to be the skipper, be the master of your destiny, and you sort of feel like an idiot capsizing and things like that, but everyone capsizes. There's no way to avoid, you know what I mean? It's just part of the deal. So it's a bit of a hard, I think laser sailing or other dinghies are quite hard as an adult to get a handle on, but I think if you come in as an adult and you really love sailing, it's worth doing it, because you might think that actually that's the most fun and you might stay there, which a lot of us are sort of, we've got a club full of people that love laser sailing at Middle Harbour Amateurs, but even if you don't like being sort of in a wetsuit all day or whatever and prefer bigger boat sailing, it still gives you that really good feel for the boat, because every boat is all boats, no matter how big they are, like I've done Hobart races on 100-footers, they still react the same way. It's a bit more of a catastrophe if you stuff it up, but it's still a boat. Yeah, sailing boats react the same way.
Yeah, you don't want to tip the 100-footer over, but same way as the dinghy. But I guess it's it's an interesting point you make. You kind of, if you're coming in as crew, you get really good at the who does what position and how all those mechanics potentially work, but not necessarily the feel of the wind on the water and the currents and what's happening with different shifts. And are there any kind of particular things you think people get out of dinghy sailing from that kind of knowledge gain perspective that they can then take with them to yacht sailing, if that's what they're doing?
I think that sensitivity to, like in a laser, you have to react the minute the wind, you get much more tuned into, I think, to what the wind's doing and the need for moving your weight around. You become more sensitive to the heel of the boat, and I think that's useful. You get to, you have that autonomy where you're actually making decisions about where to go on the course and all that sort of thing. So when you get on a bigger boat, I know it's hard to, big boat sailing, you can get sort of pigeonholed in a job, but you might really want to be in a more important job. But the thing I would say about big boat sailing, bigger boat, weekend club sailing on yachts, I think the main thing is to whatever job you can do on the boat, don't oversell yourself if you're new. I think it's better to be honest about if you are inexperienced. Lots of yachts are looking for crew. And if you can get on a boat, you're likely to have a job that isn't the most important job, but every job counts to how the yacht goes, and every job has to be done well, and you can take, that is your job. So I think it's easy to spend time going, I wish I was, and I've done this, I'm bad for this, like I wish I was on the main, I wish I was doing that, I could do that, really, and not paying attention to some job that I've thought was, I'm only doing that job. But in the end, they all have their moment where if they're not done properly, the performance of the yacht will suffer. So I don't know. I think there's you sort of need to try and get a job. And I think especially like speaking for women, that can be quite hard to, you kind of need to put yourself forward. And if someone tries to take the job off you, try and hang on to it. Like don't take a step back because
if that's your job, then it's your job.
Yeah. Hold on to the job, and but for starters, make sure you get someone to explain it to you. This sounds really basic, but often it can be embarrassing to ask people. But we all have to start somewhere, and we all make mistakes as well. I've made some doozies. We all do. So, but if you don't, there's mistakes, and then there's mistakes that are very expensive for the owner. So, it's not. You need to be humble enough to watch and learn, and then be focused on that job, whatever it is, and do it to your best ability. And you're part of the crew. You're contributing to the performance of the yacht.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I guess you're always because you're there, even if you're not, like you said, if you don't think that's what you want to do forever, you're contributing, and you can, also kind of be involved with what's happening around you and just pay attention to what's happening around you, while you're still obviously doing your job. So kind of suck in a bit of extra knowledge.
Yeah.
Vanessa, we have a question actually from the audience. Peter has asked, why don't you sail with a compass, going back to the laser discussion?
Yeah, that's a good question. I find it a bit distracting, and I looked at this. I saw God, I got a mental block. I'm getting old. Our world champion, Olympic champion, Tom. I want to say Tom Burton, who's also a fantastic sailor, but anyway, the Tom before him. Apologies. He just doesn't sail with a compass on the laser. I watched him sail without a compass on laser and thought, oh, if he can do it, well, why don't I try that? I started when I came back into lasers, I had a compass, and I just found I was like head in the boat all the time looking at the compass. And so I took it off the boat. I sail on, the geography really when we're in the harbour, and in more open waters on the angle of the boats around me, I guess. So that tactical aspect, you get a feel for if you're down or up, depending on how you are placed to the other boats. And I just find I have my head out of the boat. But I concede that there's times when it would be valuable to have one. Setting up, trying to figure out the start line, that's one of the times. Coming around the bottom mark and going, am I on a lift or a knock here? What did we have last time? That'd be really useful. Yeah,
interesting. So I guess like pros and cons, but kind of the distraction part of it you find maybe more of a con than a
having your head out of the boat is so important. Otherwise you'll just miss. That's the thing about sailing, there's so much to think about. I mean, lasers are fun because it's just you, and if you go well, you own it, and if you go badly, you own it. You know, it's not, oh, was that idiot? That sort of thing. But there's a lot going on. You've got to manage all, like the trim and you haven't got a tactician, like you're doing that as well. So I really like that about it. But yeah, it'd be nice to. I think the main thing is it's really easy to go, oh no, I missed that shift. Oh God, and just get like you just have to park that. Okay, that's that. You know, I'm here. So from here, it's always got to be from here on, and just park that. Think about that when you get back to the shore, because as soon as you start thinking about, oh, I stuffed that up, or the other classic is starting to think, I'm doing really well here, I'm going to win this race. That's the other classic. Or I'm going so well. Oh, that means like as soon as I start doing that, that's guaranteed something's going to go wrong and completely ruin it. So it all comes back to, and I actually paid a sports psychologist some money to get this advice and read his book and that sort of thing. But yeah, staying in the moment and just parking stuff, that's really important to me. And the races, like our races are 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And so it's all pretty, it's all pretty fast and done. And you have another race coming up, and every single race is a new opportunity. So, okay, okay, I did that one. Now here we go. Don't think about that one now. Think about this one. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be long days. And how many races do you normally do in a day?
At the World Championships, they have 2 a day. This is Masters World. So Masters laser sailing is 35 years and older.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there's 10-year groups, and, I mean, there's a Legends group now that are 75 years and older. So there's some incredible role models out there for people that are just, still loving their sailing, still really fit. But basically, we have some really good weekend regattas during the season here in New South Wales, and we'll go away to Lake Macquarie or something like that, and some great venues, and then we'll have 3 a day if we can get 3 in a day. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Makes for long days, I guess. By the time we get out, hour on the course, race 2 races, 3 races, and back in.
Yeah.
And are you still sailing full rigs, or are you sailing radials now?
Radial, yeah, radial's the go. but yeah, I guess a lot of people just like dinghy sailing, and the yacht sailing's never appealed to them. But I think I've been really lucky because I've been able to do both. And I mean, we haven't really talked much about yacht sailing so far.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, I'm very interested actually to cover off a little bit of the stuff you've done in yachts, because, you know, you've done, I believe, is it 20 Sydney Hobart Yacht Races, and, you know, a ton of, you know, more, is it now? Okay, wow. And, you know, a ton of big boat, like big yacht, as you said, on the 100-footer racing. Could you tell us a little bit about how you went from, you know, dinghies and your kind of first introduction into yachts, and what made you make that move into yacht sailing as well?
Yeah, I guess sailing in Sydney and watching on Boxing Day, watching the Hobart fleet take off as a little kid, it's something that you aspire to as a sailor for sure. And I was just again really lucky. I'm trying to think how. I didn't really do much big boat sailing. I got into jog sailing. I worked with a guy called Rick Dovey, who had a boat called French Connection, a jog boat. That was when Junior Offshore Group, it was really popular. And so we used to roar around offshore in these little boats at night. I mean, it was pretty crazy looking back, but that was great because the boats sort of had a crew of about 4 or 5 or 6, so it's sort of 30 foot and smaller, I guess. And so I got a bit of a grounding there. And then I can't even remember how, but I got on a boat called Southern Cross with a lovely man called Bill Gilbert, who, well, I think he's lovely because he gave me my start in offshore. And he had a new boat, a 37, and so I did the season. And actually, the first offshore race I did with him that was a new boat, and then we went offshore, and it was a race down to Flinders Island, and then up past the heads up to Bird Island. That really horrible race,
Yes,
where you have to sail past the heads. And we went. We took off. He had a bunch of sort of skiffy sailors on board, and we went out the heads, and it was a nor'easter. It was getting dark, and then he said, "Oh, so Vanessa, do you want to have a drive?" And I thought, oh yeah, I guess. I don't know. Like, I didn't know if I'd be able to do it or not. I suppose that's the thing. Like, I think sometimes you have to be brave, and if you get an opportunity, grab it. And I got on the wheel, and it was okay. It was just like every boat is the same. You know, some boats, things happen much faster, and some slower. But basically, boats behave similar. They have the same sort of reactions, and so I steered okay, and had a ball doing it. And then, you know, I just thought, this is really great. This is like an adventure, you know, nighttime and the whole bit. And then I ended up in his crew, and I think he probably was sticking his neck out a bit. It was unusual having women in the crew at that point, but I was just treated as part of the crew. And so yeah, I did the Hobart race with him that season. That was the 1984 Hobart race. That was my first one.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a horror show. It was terrible, big southerly right from the start. And so we roared down the harbour with spinnakers up, and then we just went offshore. And I think 24 hours later, we were probably still off Botany Bay or somewhere. Well, we were going hardly anywhere. It was really big seas. And the thing is that the crew were extremely experienced. They all stayed really calm, and they were like the best people for me to sail my first Hobart with, because they were just so they were experienced. Yeah, I think that's the main thing when you start offshore. You're just trying to learn everything you can. You don't realise how little you know. And and they weren't cowboys. They were safety conscious, and we wore harnesses. And the second night of that race, we'd just been banging and banging and banging into this southerly and big waves, and we just crashed over a wave, and the backstay connected to the bottom of the transom had actually ripped the transom open like a letterbox, and a whole lot of water came in, but it was pitch black and it was very hard to know what was going on. There was, we put out I think we put out a mayday. Actually, the boat right near us put out a mayday, and sadly, they lost someone overboard right at the same time. And we realised our situation was manageable. We realised that fairly quickly. We were able to, once we turned back, the back of the boat sort of rode above the waves most of the time, so water was still pouring in, but not just intermittently. So yeah, we got a handle on that pretty quickly. But it was, it's interesting to go through things like that. I think in other parts of, and I wonder sometimes why we subject ourselves to risk, but it doesn't feel like risk when you're doing it. You're doing it because you love sailing and it's a challenge, and then, I don't know, bad things can happen, and everything that can be managed has already been thought of, I suppose. The crew are experienced, the boat was well set up, had all the safety equipment, and so it wasn't really frightening. I think, you know, you learn about yourself, that's for sure, in those situations, yeah. So I didn't do another Hobart for a couple of years.
And did you make it to Hobart that year?
No, we had to withdraw, yeah. But yeah, I actually went into 18-foot skiff sailing after that for a few seasons, but then I came back to offshore and then really kind of got right into it. And again, really lucky with the owners that I've been able to sail with. Yeah, when you look back, you just think, wow, that was such a great experience. Each time you come, like, you bring a bit more experience yourself, but you get, each time you sail with people that have experience, and I think it's really all about the people. Yeah, it's.
And that's interesting. So, and you obviously then eventually made your way up to, you know, some very big yachts, and how, I guess, kind of a two-part question, like, how did you go about getting into the Maxi Racing, and what did you like about doing that? What inspired you to want to do that?
Yeah, so I suppose I sailed, I came through, I did quite a few seasons with on a boat called Wedgetail with Bill Wild, and that Kevin Costin was running the boat, and I learned a lot through that. And so I suppose I was pretty experienced, but I never thought I'd sail on a 100-footer, that's for sure. And I started sail, and I never thought I'd sail with Sid Fisher either, because he always had a reputation for, you know, no women on his boats. And I guess he mellowed. He mellowed over the years, and so by the time I got an invitation to sail with Sid, it came through Larry Jamieson, and they were short of someone to go on the Newcastle race on the 52. That was before Sid got the Maxi, and so I went along, and I got us back to sail in the 52, and I ended up doing the Hobart race with Sid on the 52. Wow. And that was a really good experience. And then we were getting ready to do the next year, and look, I have to admit that first Hobart with Sid, I was right up until the day of the race, I was thinking I could easily get a phone call saying you're off the boat here, because the reputation of people getting punted off ragamuffins existed, and I was so thrilled to go on that boat, and it was, you know, very exciting, and yeah, just to be part of the crew, I guess, and not, I suppose my sailing, I've generally sailed as part of crew without any without thinking about, she's a, well, I haven't thought about it being she's a, you know, oh, I'm a bit special here, I'm a woman. You're just part of the crew. You stand, you watch like everyone, you know. But I'm making a long answer of this, aren't I?
No,
But
it's
anyway,
okay. Yeah. But
we
it's
were getting
interesting
ready.
that you said everyone brings, you know, everyone competes as equals, but everyone, I guess, brings something different to the crew as well. So even though, you know, you might be equal, but you're different and have different skill sets. So I'm sure, you know, Sid would have had you on board because you brought a, you know, specific skill set that they wanted on Ragamuffin for those races.
Yeah, I think at that point, yeah. And I think, so we were getting ready to do another Hobart on the 52, and then he bought the 100, and so suddenly the whole thing changed, and I thought, oh, well, all the maxi boat sailors will come in, and yeah, I was told, oh, you're on the B crew, you're not going to be on the maxi, not by Sid, but by, and I really thought, oh, that's it, I'm not going to be on the boat, but then I think I did a race, a cabbage shoe race with them, because when they first got the 100, and then after that race I got asked to do the Hobart. So I guess the thing about sailing on the 100, a lot more people, and a lot of really amazing sailor. They're like a different there's some, you need specific you need people that have got big boat experience, I guess, because if you stuff up on those things, it's just maximum carnage, I suppose. So the guys on the boat were very good, very I always think when things went wrong on the boat, say on the foredeck, they'd be massive things would be going wrong, and they'd need a lot of power to control, like a head sail getting out of control was, you know, needed a lot of strong people up there to control it and get it under control. And I always think, man, they're just running. It's like being in a war and they're running towards the battle rather than, I think, God, I'd shrink away from it. That wasn't my area of the boat at all. So they'd like rush into battle and then come rushing back all like blood and fixed it, you know, like they get so, it was like a battlefield sometimes. But I suppose Sid, I sort of became friends with Sid over the time that I sailed with him. He wanted to do a lot of sailing, and so we did a couple of Transpacks, some Asia races up in Asia. He got a 90-footer up there. You know, he's had to retire from sailing. He's in his 90s now. So, but I think that last 5 years when I was sailing with him, he really packed a lot of sailing in, and incredible that he gave those opportunities. Over the course of sailing, the number of people that owe their start in professional sailing to Sid, it's quite incredible what he's put into the sport. And look, I count myself as one of the people that got so much out of sailing with him.
Yeah, lucky. Nice. And with the, you know, you kind of talk about the 100-footer versus your first race in 84. What's kind of the main difference or the main differences between going down in a small boat versus going down in something like a 100-footer?
The smaller boat, well, you get there really fast on a big boat. And and I mean the thrill of going fast, it's just incredible. Even like the last Hobart I did was with Stacey Jackson and the women's crew, 11th Hour Racing Wild Oats, and that 66-footer, I love that boat. That's such a great boat to sail, and really fast. And the big boats, if something goes wrong, it's just massive wrong, where if it's a smaller boat like a 40-footer or something like that, you can manage it with sort of human power. You don't have to sort of somehow work out a mechanical means to control it. And I think everything's more manageable. There's a lot of other boats around the same size to race against. So I think that, when I think about it, like talking about it now, being able to sail all that range of different sizes of boats, they've all been great, really. They've all been great. I've sailed with good people on each of the boats. So,
if you had a choice this year, if you were going to go down and had a choice, what would you do? 100 or 40-footer?
Wild Oats 10. I really love that boat. You can manage. It's manageable. I know the purest.
Middle ground. Okay.
Hey.
I said a good middle ground.
Yeah, I guess it's a beautiful, beautiful boat. You can trim the main. It's the press button main, trimming, so you don't have to. It's a manageable boat, and it's really fast. It's beautiful to steer. It's that was a great experience, and that is one thing I'd say in my sailing. People often go, "Oh, it's hard for women in sailing," and the one thing I'd say is there's also, I've been handed heaps of opportunities because of being a woman. Like I've been in women's crews, like the Royal and Sun Alliance, the big 94-foot cat that Tracy Edwards had. I did cross the Atlantic and back with her on a women's crew, and L Racing with Adrian Carlin. That was, got to sail from South Africa out to Australia in a women's crew again. I guess I like sailing in mixed crews, so really, that I think that's really fun. But also, there's so many good women sailors around now. There didn't used to be many of us, but these days there's lots and lots, and I think that's just a great development. Yeah. And the other thing I'd say, I'm going on, but the other thing I'd say is, like, if you really love sailing, you try it and you love it and you want to get into it, at some point I guess you sort of need to figure out, well, what is my commitment to this? And maybe you can't really expect other people to, put everything out for you. You've got to be brave and jump in and buy a boat, or I don't know, like I think, when I look at Zoe Taylor, who I did a Hobart with, had the pleasure of doing that. She's gone and done that. She's bought a racing yacht. We're not all in that league, but there's so many different levels that you can come into the sport, and if you really love it, make a commitment, get a laser or get a little old yacht. Yeah, there's so many different parts of the sport that you can come in.
I love that kind of saying, just be brave, go out, figure out what you want to do, go in and do it. And because it is, like you said, really easy just to kind of expect things to come to you. But, even as crew, like you said earlier in the show, there's lots of opportunities to join yachts as crew. So, I guess you can learn something about position or whatever it is, and kind of go out and look for an opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah. I've sort of become a part owner of a 27-foot old, it's got a lot of history to it. It's a supersonic 27, and I belong to Sydney Amateur Sailing Club, and I mean there's boats down there that look for crew. I think all around Australia there's boats looking for crew on weekends. I think my sail is a way of connecting people, but I think don't put up with someone yelling at you all the time. If you're trying to get on a boat and you get yelled at all the time, find another boat. That I really hate being yelled at. But there's a lot of boats out there. It mightn't be, but I think you have to be clear with what don't overcommit. If if you can sail regularly, that's fine. But if you say you're going to be there and then you can't be there, it sort of lets people down. But if you want to get sailing, people often say, like, how do I get into the sport? But yeah, that you do need to be brave and go to a club and find opportunities, twilight sailing or something. You sort of have to put yourself forward. It's not that easy if you don't have a friends network into it. But I'd say do a course, get enough knowledge that you're not completely green. There's lots of schools that can teach you the basics, and then find lots of boats looking for crew, or get a laser.
Lasers. Or a laser, yeah. Or do both. Yeah, lots of ways to get involved. No, I love it. And Vanessa, look, we've got a comment from, must be a friend of yours, Peter, who says he's reliving the 84 Hobart and scared just listening. Thanks for sharing. So thanks for joining us, Peter. Vanessa, I love to end these on, last question is just kind of what's in the future for you. And you mentioned that new yacht that you've bought, so potentially going to be looking for crew for any local Sydney siders. I don't
know. Twilight sailing, yeah. I've got my safety inspection on this Saturday at to getting it ready. Yeah, to do the.
Might be me doing it then. We'll see.
At Sydney Amateurs, yeah.
Oh, amateurs. Okay, no.
So I was going to do twilight sailing this. And look, I'm still really keen on the laser. I love, like, we race on Sundays down at Middle Harbour Amateurs. There's other good laser clubs around the harbour that race on Saturdays, like Double Bay and Vaucluse, Manly. So it's sort of whatever's convenient, but I love my Sunday sailing at Middle Harbour. It's a really nice bunch of people, and I always find when I drive home I'm pretty relaxed after a great day on the harbour, and I always notice how, all these people driving really aggressively around me, and they haven't had a nice afternoon sailing, I figure.
Yeah, must be that. Oh no, that's great. And just for our listeners, just before we wrap up, I wanted to just say that this is going to be the last Dockside with Deb for now anyway. We've got some development work and stuff with my sail to focus on for the next little while, but I am planning to hopefully bring it back, potentially in a slightly different format in the future. So you do get a survey afterwards. So please, if you've got any feedback about, if you'd like to see this kind of continue or what you'd like to see, please fill that out and let me know, or leave a comment on Facebook, or send an email, or grab me next time you see me down at the yacht club. And was great to have Vanessa Dudley on for our last episode, at least for now. Vanessa, it's been so good chatting for you, and thank you so much for taking this time to come on. And yeah, it's been amazing to hear all of your stories and all of those tips. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks. It's an honor.
Oh no, it's great. It's our honor. Thank you, and good night, everyone, and thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you'd like to know more about this program or the MySail app and community, head on over to mysail.team. That's mysail.team. Until next time, stay safe and happy sailing.